On tonight's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, Shedeur Sanders, one of the top quarterback prospects in this year's NFL draft class, is apparently falling down draft boards, and some people are even speculating that he could fall to the Steelers all the way down to number 21. We'll talk about that possibility at the top of today's show. Then there is a report today claiming to leak the Steelers free agency plan heading into free agency next week at one specific position. Then we'll finish up today's show by keeping you guys updated on the latest on the Steelers quarterback situation and why I think Justin Fields is in the driver's seat to be the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But before we get going today, word-of-mouth referrals are really what keeps this channel going and growing. So if there's somebody in your life, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, whether it's a colleague, whether it's somebody in your life that loves the Pittsburgh Steelers and you think they would love our daily content, I greatly appreciate you guys sharing our videos with the people in your life that you think will enjoy our Steelers content. So thank you guys so much. Make sure you share that video today and share this video with somebody in your life to help us grow our channel. Okay, now let's start with Shedeur Sanders, where the Athletic's Dane Brugler has Sanders falling all the way to number 21 in his latest mock draft, where he has the Steelers taking the former Colorado Buffalo. This is what Brugler had to say about the latest surrounding Sanders. Sanders is going to be a wild card in this draft. He could go in the top 6 or fall out of the first round entirely, and neither outcome would be a shock. He is not a first-round quarterback for a lot of NFL teams, which isn't a major surprise and matches my evaluation. But all it takes is one front office to roll the dice on his skill set. If Sanders falls out of the top 10, this would be an interesting landing spot with the Steelers. The Steelers are searching for answers at the quarterback position. Now, my take here is that somebody somewhere is going to bite on Shedeur Sanders, and I think the Las Vegas Raiders is a team that has consistently been linked to Shedeur, so I think that 6 is probably the lowest he's going to end up going. In fact, I think the Raiders might even think about trading up to secure themselves Shedeur Sanders as their next franchise quarterback. But even if he's available, even if he does fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21 overall, guys, I am not interested in drafting Shedeur Sanders. I would pass on him, even though the Steelers are in need of a franchise quarterback and would love to have a long-term option. I'm just not very convinced that Shedeur would be the right fit for what the Pittsburgh Steelers want, especially in the AFC North. Like Dane Brugler, I am lower on Shedeur Sanders. I have a late round 1, early round 2 grade on Sanders. I don't think his upside is all that great. I think at the very most he's going to be a mid-level NFL starter, and that's if he fixes some of the problems that we see on his film. For me personally, guys, for somebody that mentally processes information pretty well and he can get to 1 to 2 to 3, he usually waits for his receiver to break open before he throws it. Not a ton of anticipation on his film, in my opinion, and then he pairs that with a lack of NFL arm strength, where his arm's okay. It's definitely not a howitzer. It's not, terrible, but, he can make, certain throws, but he's certainly going to be limited in terms of the type of throws that he's going to be able to make on a weekly basis in the National Football League. And then if you pair lower end arm strength with a lack of anticipation, you know what that means in the NFL, guys? Interceptions over the middle of the field. That is my biggest concern with Shedeur Sanders heading into his rookie season. I also don't love his pocket presence. He does tend to leave clean pockets from time to time. He'll stand and deliver when he has his read kind of locked in his sights. But, overall, he's a decent prospect. I think that at best he's going to be a pretty good game-managing type quarterback in this league. He's got good accuracy, clean mechanics. He makes good decisions with the football, doesn't turn the football over very often. And he does have some playmaking ability to his game as well. But I have a late round 1, early round 2 grade on Shedeur Sanders. And, I'd prefer to take my dart throw at quarterback in the middle rounds if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I'm just not sure Shedeur Sanders, as kind of a weaker arm quarterback, is necessarily a good fit for the Steelers, a team that plays in cold weather and in the wind and in the elements. For me personally, guys, I prefer my Steelers quarterbacks to have stronger arms. That doesn't fit the description of Shedeur Sanders, and because I think his upside is limited, I'm not willing to spend a first-round pick on him when you could go out and get a defensive tackle. You could go out and get a wide receiver. You could go out and and get a running back. And then there's still some pretty decent options on day 2 and even early day 3 that the Steelers could consider. I'm a big fan of Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. He's a little bit older and he has injury concerns, but his film is excellent. I actually think Shuck's film is better than Shedeur Sanders's. Then Jackson Dart in round 3 is where I would take him. He's got some nice tools at his disposal, but needs to grow quite a bit. I don't think he's ready to start right away. Similar profile for Will Howard out of Ohio State. Jalen Milroe really needs a lot of development. And then Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Not a lot of consistency on his film. Apparently he was injured all last year, but he certainly has the arm talent that could lead to him being a starting quarterback if he can figure out the consistency element of his game. So you be the GM for me down there in the comment section. Would you draft Shedeur Sanders at pick number 21 if you are the GM of this team? Type D if you would draft him, or type P if you would pass on him. You guys know my answer, guys. I would pass on him, and I would take a wide receiver or a running back or a defensive tackle in round 1, but this will be the pinned comment on today's show, so this is your opportunity to go down there in the comment section when YouTube throws you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds and answer today's pinned question. Then we shift to a report today from Penn Live's Nick Farabaugh that says the Pittsburgh Steelers plan to pursue Raiders cornerback Nate Hobbs at the start of free agency and showed interest in DJ Reed, Charvarius Ward, and Carlton Davis, sources told Penn Live at the NFL Combine. So listen, man, this is an awesome report if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, because I think this is exactly the plan that Omar Khan and the Steelers should be having here. To try and really lock up this cornerback room, because this was a big issue for the Steelers defense, especially down the stretch. Cam Sutton in the slot was a complete mess, and Dante Jackson just couldn't hold up in man coverage. But with these two moves where you're going to be locking up veterans at both the outside cornerback position alongside Joey Porter Jr., and then you're starting slot corner with veteran players that are ready to win now and ready to really contribute right now, I think that this is exactly what the Steelers should be doing as they approach free agency. Nate Hobbs is one of the best slot defenders in the National Football League today. He's very versatile. He's got some great size for a slot defender. He can blitz. There's a lot of great stuff on Nate Hobbs' film, and he will be affordable. Right now, Pro Football Focus projects just a 1-year, $4 million contract. And if the Steelers want to sign Hobbs, one of the best slot corners in the league, to a multiple-year contract, especially for that $4 million per season type of range, I am not going to scoff at that whatsoever. I would be thrilled to have Nate Hobbs here in the Steel City. And then when it comes to the outside corner options that Nick pointed out in his report today, Charvarius Ward, DJ Reed, and Carlton Davis are all excellent options for the Pittsburgh Steelers on the outside. I'll even add Paulson Adebo to this list as well. If you can't get any of these three, Paulson Adebo is also an excellent fit for what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do, and they want to have these aggressive, physical outside corners. And all the guys that we just showed on that graphic, guys, all of them are projected to get around 3 years or around $14 million per season, which I think is a price tag that the Steelers can absolutely afford. And for me, guys, I think that these two moves, if you get Nate Hobbs as your next starting slot corner, and then you bring in Charvarius Ward, DJ Reed, or Carlton Davis on the outside, I think that fixes Pittsburgh's cornerback problem, which of course gets a big thumbs up from me. Then we get to a different report here from Pat Leonard, who is a beat reporter for the New York Giants, says that Darius Slayton anticipates a lot of interest in free agency. I'm told teams like the Chargers, Panthers, and Steelers are among the likely suitors for the consistent Giants receiver. And of course, we talked quite a bit about Slayton towards the NFL trade deadline. The Steelers did kick the tires to try and get Slayton. The Giants wanted a little bit more than what the Steelers were willing to give. So of course, Slayton is now slated to hit the free agency market. Spotrac currently projects his contract value at 3 years, $15.8 million per season for a 28-year-old player here that's just under 200 pounds. He is a deep threat. He's got great size and speed combination. And you guys can see here, his numbers haven't been phenomenal with the New York Giants offense, but a lot of this, in my opinion, is because Daniel Jones was among the most conservative quarterbacks in the NFL during his tenure there with Big Blue, and Darius Slayton is kind of a true deep threat. So I think it was a complete mismatch between Slayton's deep threat type of skill set and then Daniel Jones and the way that he likes to play, which is extremely conservatively. So you take a look here at my scouting report. and this was back when we had him during the trade deadline. I think he's a good route runner. I think he's a great downfield threat, and I think he'd be a really solid number 2 option alongside George Pickens if you're looking for somebody that can beat the defense deep. The cons here is he's not a phenomenal run blocker, if I'm being completely honest with you. And then, obviously the Steelers would have to give him a new contract because he's a free agent. But at the end of the day here, guys, I think Slayton isn't my first choice at wide receiver if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, I think that there's other guys out there that I would rather go pursue and kick the tires on before I'm going to Slayton and offering him a contract. And if they do sign him, I mean, I just don't think Mr. Slayton is worth $15.8 million per season. With all due respect to him, I think he's a decent player. I kind of my comp for him is kind of like a better Marquez Valdes-Scantling. All right, he's kind of that similar player where he's got good size and he's a deep threat and he's got some good speed to win deep down the field. But I just don't know if he's worth $15.8 million per season over 3 seasons, but that's just me. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, the latest on the Steelers quarterback position and why I think Justin Fields, if he wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler next year and he wants to sign on the dotted line, I think it's his job for the taking. But before we get into that, have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. You guys can go to chatsports.com/beanie to get this awesome and stylish Steelers hat to wear during the colder months of the year, every single year, to rep the black and gold, and then also help out the channel. Every time you go to chatsports.com/beanie, I'll put that link in the comments and description of today's show. You click that link and you make a purchase. By the way, this is on sale right now, so this is the time to really strike while the iron's hot. Fanatics is going to send us part of the proceeds, so it actually helps out our channel. So if you want to help support the show today and you want to get a Steelers hat in your collection today for the winter months, go to chatsports.com/beanie and lock it in today. So the recent quarterback buzz here, and this is where we're at right now, guys, in my opinion. I think that if Fields wants to sign a contract today and he wants to lock himself in as the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he could. I do think the Steelers prefer to bring back Justin Fields, but I think the Steelers have their offer and their number that they're comfortable signing Fields at, and they don't want to overpay. They do not want to give him, up into the $20 million per season range for Justin Fields. They have their price tag that they feel comfortable bringing Fields back at, and they're not willing to budge on that. And the reason why Fields hasn't signed and locked himself in as this team's starting quarterback next season is because his team has a number as well, and they are relatively far apart on that number. So somebody here is going to have to budge. If Justin Fields is going to get this deal locked up, and Adam Schefter went on Pat McAfee today and said the Steelers are determined to get a deal done with a quarterback sometime this week, preferably Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. I think Russ is their fallback option right now, but if the Steelers aren't willing to budge and Fields isn't willing to budge on the current number that the two sides are currently negotiating, that means Justin Fields is going to become a free agent, and if he becomes a free agent, I do not think a deal happens once the legal tampering period begins next Monday. I don't think the Steelers are going to budge, guys. I think that the Steelers have their price that they would like Justin Fields at, and they have their price that Russell Wilson that they would bring back Russell Wilson for. I think already Russell Wilson and his camp have kind of already accepted, the number that the Steelers would give them. Now it comes down to what Justin Fields wants. Is Justin Fields going to take the number that the Steelers are offering or not and test the market and try to get more money elsewhere? I certainly think that's a possibility, but my best guess right now, guys, is I think Fields is going to cave. I don't think Fields wants to go to another team, learn yet another playbook. I think he wants to continue to build the chemistry that he has in the offense that he has here in Pittsburgh. He knows he's going to have a good defense to buffer any struggles the offense has with him at quarterback next year. He's got a head coach that he really respects and likes and loves, and Mike Tomlin, and I think he wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So, usually the way these things go, guys, especially when the team and the player, their first preference is each other, it usually ends up this way. We saw this with the Matthew Stafford situation, right? The Rams wanted Stafford back. Stafford wanted to go back to the Rams. And, there's a lot of hemming and hawing, and there's a lot of games being played. But at the end of the day, both sides wanted to work with each other, so they figured something out. I think that's kind of the situation right now. It might take us to the end of the week before Fields eventually caves and takes the offer that the Steelers currently have on the table. But I think at the end of the day, the most likely scenario is that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Justin Fields will come to some sort of agreement to keep him here in Pittsburgh and make him the new QB1 here for the black and gold. And then, when it comes to some more news today, Adam Schefter confirmed today, we talked about this on yesterday's show, that the Jets are releasing wide receiver Davante Adams. I told you on yesterday's show, guys, that's exactly what was going to happen, and of course it ended up happening. But I got to tell you guys this right now. I think that Davante Adams, I think the chances of him going to the Steelers are relatively low. All right, I think that the way that it goes right now is you can choose. All right, you can have Justin Fields or you can have Davante Adams, but you likely can't have both. And I explained this on yesterday's show as well, but I want to reiterate here. I think that Adams is either going to want to follow Aaron Rodgers wherever he ends up going, all right, whether that's to the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether that's to the New York Giants, wherever Rodgers goes, I think Adams has a good chance to follow him, or he'll go out west and play for the San Francisco 49ers, the LA Rams, somewhere out there. That's where his family is. That's where he loves to be. And he still has a house in LA. Like, Adams would love to go and play for a team in California or somewhere over there. And, if Adams ends up going to San Francisco, which is a legitimate possibility here, that would potentially free up Brandon Ayuk to be traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is something that we discussed on yesterday's show as well. And I think is something where if Ayuk's injury isn't as bad as maybe some of the people around him are talking about right now, like, it sounds like he might not be able to play at the start of next season. If that's the case, I don't want the Steelers to pursue him whatsoever. But if he's healthy enough to play at the start of next year, I think that the Steelers should at least give San Francisco a call to see what it would take to bring him here to Pittsburgh. I still think he's a great fit here in Pittsburgh. You can get out of his contract next year because all the guaranteed money was in his signing bonus with San Francisco, essentially. So, I think it's an interesting opportunity that I think the Steelers are going to be pursuing in some form or another. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk, guys. I really do appreciate all of your support. You can find me on Twitter at Jack_Sperry, and also on IG. You can find here, you can find our short content on IG at SteelersCS. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and until then, here we go, Steelers.